The movie tells the story of Jimmy Conlon, a veteran Irish mobster who has become an emotionally unstable drunk. Jimmy used to work for Sean Maguire, a mob leader who is also his best friend. Sean is the only one who still cares about Jimmy because everyone else. Jimmy has a son named Mike. The boy is a limo driver and a professional boxer who helps kids at the neighborhood gym. Tired of his father's behavior and mob career, Mike refuses to call him dad or spend time with him. Mike also tries to keep his family away from his father. One night, Jimmy plans to meet Danny, Sean's son, to ask for a loan. He sees two cops in his room collecting bribes from him. This is a common practice in mafia business to facilitate illegal operations. Danny is irritated by Jimmy's presence because he keeps asking him for money, even after he retires. Danny refuses to lend him any unless he agrees to do something for him and asks him to be Santa Claus at his Christmas party. Jimmy agrees, as he desperately needs the money. Later, Danny meets with his father Sean and some Albanian criminals to discuss selling stuff. However, Sean rejects the gangsters' offer to allow the sale of Albanian goods in his area. The Albanian criminals ask Danny to return the money he spent arranging the meeting and negotiating with Sean. Since the amount of money is large, they give Danny 1 day and threaten to kill him if he does not return the money. Danny tells them that he will convince his father to accept the offer. He returns to his father after the Albanians leave and they argue because Sean will not accept the offer. Meanwhile, Mike is throwing punches at a boxing gym, joined by one of his students, nicknamed Legs, who is videotaping him. After training, Mike brings 2 clients to a location, including the Albanian criminals who met Danny at Sean's house. They change their minds and plan to get their money back from Danny that evening. When they arrive at Danny's house, they get angry when the man taunts them by giving them a pile of counterfeit money. A gunfight ensues and Danny manages to kill one of the gangsters. When one of them realizes that his partner is dead, he tries to escape. Danny pursues him and shoots him. Mike witnesses the incident, as does Legs, who has filmed the shooting with his video camera. Danny approaches Mike with a revolver after seeing him in the car. Meanwhile, Legs manages to hide. Danny takes Mike to his house with the intention of killing him, but Mike manages to escape. Danny and his henchmen chase him, but he manages to escape by jumping the fence. Danny manages to steal Mike's wallet and takes his home address. Mike calls his wife, who is at his sister-in-law's, and tells her to stay there and not go home for his safety. Knowing he is in trouble with Danny, Jimmy goes to his son's house and asks him, on Sean's orders, not to report the murder. He refuses to let his father into the house. But Jimmy enters the house and tries to convince his son to accept Sean's orders. This is for the good of both of them and for the safety of his family, but Mike continues to refuse and wants to report Danny to the police. As Jimmy leaves the house, he sees Danny's car parked nearby. He rushes back inside and finds Danny threatening to kill Mike with a gun. Without much thought, Jimmy ends Danny's life by shooting him. After killing him, Jimmy calls Sean to tell him that he had no choice but to kill him because he was going to kill Mike. Sean is devastated and hides the fact from his wife. He makes it clear to Jimmy that he will now have to kill him and his son Mike as well. Mike, shaken by the experience, picks up the phone and dials the police number. But Jimmy stops him, as this would only make the situation worse. Mike's father kicks him out of the house for his irresponsible actions. Mike calls 911 and tells the operator that his father shot a man in the house. Sean tells his wife about his son's death and they both break down in tears. It turns out that he managed to intercept the call and sent his henchmen to Mike's house. He hires 2 corrupt cops to kidnap and kill Mike. On the other side, Jimmy watches as the 2 cops take his son away from him. While standing outside Mike's house, he notices that the corrupt cops are the same ones he saw in Danny's office. Jimmy pursues the cops, causing an accident in which the cop's car loses control and crashes. He goes to rescue Mike, who is handcuffed and in the back seat. He then shoots and kills one of the dirty cops. Then he leaves, taking Mike with him. But Sean orders his henchmen, led by a man named Frank, to kill Mike and Jimmy. The men follow them into the subway. Mike is stopped by a boy he owes money to. He tries to avoid him, but the boy insists, and suddenly a henchman arrives and starts beating Jimmy. Mike tries to run away but is seen by a henchman. His father continues to fight with Frank, who gets the upper hand and strangles him. Jimmy then takes his son to the subway. Sean tells his henchmen to go to Danny's house and plant evidence to frame Mike for the murders. Mike becomes the prime suspect after Sean orders his men to put the bodies of the Albanian criminals in his car. He mobilizes his men across the country to hunt down Jimmy and Mike. Mike's wife, Gabrielle, sees a news report in which Mike and Jimmy are suspected of murder and wanted by the police. Jimmy asks Mike to return to his family and stay in hiding until he contacts them. He then contacts Detective Harding, a police investigator who has been unable to prove Jimmy's involvement in the deaths of the Albanian thugs. Harding informs Jimmy that eyewitnesses believe that Mike, not Danny, was the shooter. Jimmy makes a deal with Harding, agreeing to prove Mike's innocence in exchange for a list of everyone he has killed during his career as a mobster. Later, Jimmy meets with Sean to apologize and asks him not to implicate Mike. Sean refuses because he now has the right to get his revenge. Jimmy tells Sean that Danny tried to kill Mike and threatens to tell the authorities about his past crimes. Sean remains unconcerned and says that the police are not interested in the information Jimmy has on him. When Jimmy hears the threat to kill Mike's family, he rushes to Mike's house. He sends his son and family to another location for their safety. Then Jimmy and Mike run to Leg's apartment to get the footage of Danny killing an Albanian gangster in front of his house. This will prove that Mike is not the killer. As they go to Leg's, one of the building's residents sees them and recognizes them, so he reports them to the police. The police arrive to take the building's residents to safety. Andrew Price, a skilled assassin hired by Sean, is also present and cuts the power to the entire building. Jimmy and Mike take the opportunity to talk to the tenants of the apartments that are about to be evacuated because of a fire. In the dark, Price uses night vision goggles and figures out where Jimmy and Mike are. Jimmy tells his son to run while he kills the gunman. He goes downstairs and a fight breaks out between him and the gunman. Then Mike returns and puts a gun to the killer's head, but Jimmy tells him not to, or he will be arrested. The cops arrive, but Jimmy and Mike avoid them and run away. But as Jimmy is about to leave, Price shoots him, wounding his hand. He and Mike then go to Jimmy's brother Eddie's house. Eddie tells Mike that Jimmy worked with Sean and killed his cousin to keep him from testifying against Sean and that he would do the same to Mike. Disappointed in his father, Mike returns home to his family. Jimmy calls Sean again and tells him to stop stalking Mike and his family, threatening to kill him. Sean ignores Jimmy's threat and hangs up the phone. But by that time, Jimmy has already arrived at Sean's house and is ready to execute him. Jimmy slaughters Sean's henchman and finally kills him, ending their argument. At the same time, Legs goes to the police station. The boy finds Detective Harding and gives him the footage of Danny's murder of the Albanian thug. Harding confirms the video by checking the ballistics on Danny's gun. Meanwhile, Mike arrives at a remote cabin to meet his family. He decides to call Detective Harding to give him his location and turn himself in. Soon after, Jimmy goes to Mike and his family and informs them that Sean is dead and everything is over so they can live in peace. Mike seems relieved and eventually introduces Jimmy to his granddaughters for the first time. Price, who is still alive, arrives and attacks the cabin. He manages to seriously injure Jimmy and then goes after Mike and his family. The killer sets Mike up, but Jimmy kills Price before he can shoot Mike. When the police arrive, Detective Harding tells him that he has a video of the Albanian gangster murders that proves Mike is innocent and clears him of all charges. Jimmy then sighs and dies. Detective Harding notices that Jimmy is holding the list of victims he killed during his criminal career. Although they were never very close, Mike is saddened by his father's death as he did everything in his power to save him and his family at the end of his life. Mike goes back to work as a boxing trainer and lives a happy life with his wife and daughters. Before going to work, Mike looks at a picture of himself with his father. If you liked the video, leave a like, comment and subscribe. Thanks for watching.